wartime, I was an instrument tech, and post-war, while I was going to university, I was with what was then called the Auxiliary Air Force in Vancouver, and then rejoined the Air Force when they were forming a social work branch to look after emotional problems and personnel problems and that. And I did that until 91, early 91, and then I got offered a job here and moved here. So that I got a phone call from the commander here, Colonel Bill Melville, saying I just got out of the regular, would I like to join the militia? And I joined. 2 weeks later, I joined, and I've been involved with them ever since, one way or the other.
My name is Chief Warrant Officer George Romick. I am the Regimental Sergeant Major of the Lake Superior Scottish Regiment and also of the 18th Thunder Bay Service Battalion. I've joined the Army Reserves in 1974, and right now I've been in 32 years in the Army Reserve. I've been involved with the museum off and on for, I guess, probably about the past 5 or 6 years, but about 3 years ago I really got involved. I've been on the board of, I guess, governors, or what you call it. I assist them with the brain gun carrier. I assist them with looking after some of their medals and other documents. I advise them on how we can keep the museum maintained on there.
Our emphasis is very much on community education. First of all, preserving the artifacts, and secondly, interpreting the history of the military in this area to tourists, to local people, to schools, to whatever. So we have a very broad role. So my responsibilities include general management, fundraising. We don't have a fundraiser, so the fundraising has been an essential part of my role, and most particularly looking after the visitors, because I'm the only one who's here every day that the museum is open.
My name's Carl Schmidt, and I'm an artifacts keeper in the stores. I look after all the artifacts and store them and change some of the displays when required. Just a volunteer. My hobby too is collecting. Actually, I came along at the right time because Jack lost his other storage guy, passed away about 2 years now, and I sort of just came back. I used to be here before, but then I had my work wouldn't let me come when I wanted to, so when I retired, I just sort of came back and started working with Jack and Bruce, but then Bruce passed away, so I'm sort of looking out for the stores now. We have new stuff coming all the time. People donate stuff to older people, veterans are disappearing, and their stuff starts ending up here.
Last week I've had photographs, we've had a book, I've had a gift of a collection which is not yet complete. The person whose donor is coming up with some more of the memorabilia of a particular man named Fraser, who in the first war joined up at 16, was overseas in 1914, earned a 14-15 star, got blown up, and had shrapnel all over him. Later was taken prisoner, escaped, was looked after by some nuns in a convent, and for 6 months lived in an organ while the village that he was in was occupied by German troops. The British forces then later drove the Germans out. He got away. And he not only had the experience of being blown up that I mentioned, and the experience of being a prisoner of war, but he rescued a French officer who was lying wounded in no man's land, and he got the Croix de Guerre for that. And we are planning on making a major display. He also got a letter from King George V congratulating him on surviving everything that he did. These are the medals of a Mr. Fraser, who was later a grain inspector in Thunder Bay. You see the medals of a person who fought in the First War, was active in the Second World War, and was able to gain the post-war long service medal. We also have a very excellent collection of pictures, paintings that is mainly, done by a German prisoner of war named Georg Hugel. He was a coder on U-110, and he, as part of that job, had the care of the Enigma machine, the coding machine that the Germans had invented, which was almost impossible to decode. Early in 1940, he was captured by one of the roving patrols of Navy ships that roamed the Atlantic, hunting for submarines. So a decision was made to ship the German prisoners to Canada. He was selected to work in a logging camp. Everywhere he went, he carried a sketchbook. He was approached by Don Clark, the owner of Nipigon Lake Timber Company, and he provided Hugel with all the art supplies from February of 1941 until September 46, when Hugel went back. He was very glad to be captured, because when he was captured, the average length of time that a German submarine lasted was 2.5 trips. After that, he said he would have been food for the fish. He's still alive, and after the war, he finished his art training and became an artist for the Bavarian government. He came over about 5 years ago and gave us 315 of these pictures that he had done.
I guess he decided to give the collection to this area here because he spent most of his time here during the war after he was captured. Actually, there was a few other museums looking for this collection, and it ended up here.
And thanks for the way the Canadian military treated the German prisoners. And then stayed an extra week. We showed he and his wife around for the week.
Some of my responsibilities, I was looking after the Bren gun carrier. We had a gentleman who was actually rebuilt the Bren gun carrier for us. I was involved with getting the Bren gun carrier back here, making sure it's properly looked after. The one we have is actually an operational Bren gun carrier. Right now it's over at the HMCS Griffin Boatyard down at the waterfront. All museums should be a public museum, okay? Colonel Young does an excellent job down there when people want to come down and tour the museum. And people should know about the history of their units in town, whether it's the Lake Superior Scottish Regiment, 18th Service Battalion, 18th Field Ambulance, 736 Communications Squadron, or HMCS Griffin. This is history that people should know about. The relatives could have been in the conflicts of World War I, World War II, Korea, peacekeeping, or in Afghanistan. Our museum is open on Tuesday nights and Friday afternoons. And whenever special groups like scouts or guides want to come in, all they got to do is call Colonel Young, and he's very happy to give them a tour.
Who's ever interested in military stuff, they usually end up here. I like everything military. My wife thinks I'm a little bit eccentric, but that's okay with me.
If you went to Winnipeg now and went into the Minto Armoury, you'd find that the Cameron Highlanders have their own museum, the Royal Winnipeg Rifles have their own museum, the Service Battalion has its own museum. And these single unit museums place a great deal of emphasis on training or educating their recruits and their soldiers or their sailors in the history of the units, whereas our emphasis is very much on community education. First of all, preserving the artifacts, and secondly, interpreting the history of the military in this area to tourists, to local people, to schools, to whatever. So we have a very broad role. And I give high priority to looking after visitors. Nobody ever gets turned away. And the paper might have to pile up, but people don't get told to come back.